start
Yeah, we can
just a little
start.
bit late here.
Oh, did they tell you to start late?
No, but we just got set up and we just got ready.
Oh, we're fine. We can...
Okay, hello and welcome to Accelerating the Growth of Minnesota's Digital Games Industry. My name is Ava Kreikel. Actually, let me try to... It's on... it's doing, wow, that's really fancy. Okay, my name is Ava Kreikel, and I'm the Executive Director for Glitch. A little bit about myself and kind of my history. I've been playing games since I was very young. I believe I was maybe 4 or 5. My parents really pushed educational games, so not really gaming in the traditional sense. So I pretty much played all the blasters, all the jump starts. I traveled all the trails. Yeah, and the unknown Yukon one that many people did not play. And myself and Nick started Glitch, and it originally was a student group back in 2011. And since then, it's moved to be a nonprofit. Yeah.
So I'm Nick Van Meerten. I co-founded Glitch, as Ava said, and I am also a student at the U, studying how people learn in games. So that's kind of my connection to all of this accelerating the growth of the games industry. But, I mean, I don't want to waste too much time talking about myself.
That's true. We already wasted like 5 minutes.
About Glitch. Glitch is a nonprofit at the U, or based at the U, that basically tries to promote the exploration of video games as a culture, career, and creative practice. It's really focused on getting students experience in this industry and getting them connected with people who are currently working with video games in or as a career. Yeah, basically said everything there.
So no, I don't really want to talk about that very much at all, and we're already like 5 minutes behind. So here are some of the issues that we've faced over the 5 years that we've been working with Glitch. The first 3 years, it was originally a student group, as we said, and then within the past 2 years, I've done this full time, and it's completely become a nonprofit that's fiscally sponsored by Games for Change. The issues that we've found over the time that we've been working there, and even ourselves, is that, no, we're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Is these lack of opportunities, and generally lack of opportunities overall locally here in Minnesota. The first one is portfolio building opportunities for students who may not have any other outlet to do it. For example, we just kind of picked up Game Jams this year, and it's really a great way to get students to just dive in and just start making. Limited networking. There aren't a ton of networking events that are specifically geared towards getting students and even the general community engaged with the games industry here. And then mentorship, there is almost none of that. There are very few opportunities to have people be mentored, especially young adults who are in this field. And then very few internships as well, specifically in this field because of the few, essentially, studios that are here locally. And then afterwards, full-time employment.
So yeah, we'll go on to the first exercise. Well, overall, we're going to structure this with a lot of discussion. So we're going to have each of you, which you're already broken up into groups, so that was easy. The worksheets are essentially just a blank piece of paper. So we're going to have you kind of collect your ideas on the paper so you can discuss them with the whole group afterwards. And we're going to have a question posed on the screen, and then you'll just discuss it in a small group, write down your answers, select a team representative, and then kind of have that team representative talk about your discussion to the whole group afterwards.
And then we'll also jump into teams as well and be a part of the conversation.
Yep.
So,
the first question is a little bit of an icebreaker, but basically we want you to introduce each other, or introduce yourselves to each other. So who are you, and why are you interested in accelerating the growth of Minnesota's video game industry? So go.
Maybe I will move over here, or would you two like to join our group over here? Oh, maybe I shouldn't wear the microphone. Private chats, private conversations. Secret chats.
Learning how games are put together from the community side.
Who wants to go first?
But I'm also a homeless addict, so I can't
Tech
play.
guy who likes video games.
Yeah. What games did you get addicted to?
Any one of them, I just can't play them.
Oh, okay. Where are you at the U? Are you?
That's me.
That's funny.
Oh, okay.
name's
Okay.
Grant. I
What
am
department or office do you kind of work with?
Social work.
Oh, okay.
doing like
Okay.
content
Very
special-
cool.
or digital content special stuff. But I did graphic design at university and museum games there. And that was really fun. And I'm completely selfishly wanting to get games going. I'm trying to get some of my friends who are software developers.
I'm interested in games
boring
because
fields.
Yeah.
I
really like video games.
and I told myself that I would probably never work at a game studio. Because,
Why?
well, because
I'm an iOS developer.
you want to guard your heart. you want to do.
I also am addicted to games. I also don't play them because I can't stop.
But I would
But I'm
like
trying to
designing
make
and I
my
like the opportunities that are here. If there were more opportunities.
Yeah.
Games just in their free time, and I think it's a super interesting thing. Like,
Have you gotten addicted to your own game yet?
it's not far enough.
Okay. Okay.
You get addicted to writing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Ron.
So my name's Gordon. I actually have some experience in the industry.
And I'm
I have
Mostly
done contract work
but
for
I
CCP Games, Iceland.
always enjoy video
Actually went to Iceland for a few months.
I know these guys.
And yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience, and I highly recommend it to anyone who gets lucky.
Like Journey.
Yeah, like Journey, that one. I mean, this is so cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Games like that really.
Contractor doing
Very
simulations
cool.
work.
I like to hear
However,
more about that. I
At both
don't have
Sure.
a
companies,
ton to
I
contribute,
work
but.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
So I don't do a lot of nitty gritty. Well, I don't do any development work basically. I do some JavaScript. But I do motion graphics for the most part, so I usually do
that's why I'm interested. I've always been interested.
filming,
Well, not
production,
always, but for a
post-production.
long time, been interested in like
and
these things
that-
with games and stuff.
through some coincidences, it ended
I've
up
always
being
said when people have asked me when I like started game development,
like I said,
oh, do you want to work in the game industry? I've always said like I don't want to.
Why is that?
trying to
Because looking at it, the average
trying to sell
lifespan or
that to the
like that people stay
military.
in the
Military's
game
pretty,
industry is 3
pretty
years.
easy money,
and
so
not that
it's not
money
that
is
hard.
a big deal, but you make half
So
of,
it's
on
similar to,
average,
like,
half of
America's
what
Army
you would
type
be
stuff.
doing the same thing
it
at other places.
wasn't,
But if that's your
um,
passion, whatever.
So
But you're
it's
also
not
put
exactly
under more
similar to that.
harsher
It's actually
deadlines
for the
than
Army to use behind closed doors to train
Okay, sure. We're
Marines and
just
so on.
doing introductions into the small
fly
groups, so you're more than welcome to just jump in, and then we're gonna basically do
That's what I did
questions
in Battlefield
immediately
a lot.
after that, and then share amongst the groups. So you're more than welcome to join
And
us.
then you like
Yep, no problem.
flash and stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
That's not the goal.
That's a feeling right immediately as if you crash the helicopter. So.
That sounds like
But
a
they're
fun
doing cool
project.
stuff. I mean, they have this thing now where they're experimenting with Oculus, so that instead of having these huge, expensive, projectors and stuff that go, which are cool, they go like 180 degrees around a cockpit or a
it
fake
seems kind of
cockpit.
frustrating
Now they're just
bigger
experimenting
companies,
with Oculus.
but like
seeing
something
if
I've
they can
seen with
reduce
Sony,
costs.
it was Sony, I believe.
What type of game are you making?
Basically,
It came out like in a small
I'm not
team
gonna
from
lie,
Sony.
Just change out the sprites.
Oh, I have this cool idea for a game
Did
that we
you
want.
really like Zelda though? Is that why you're
Yeah,
doing it?
that's my favorite game.
Okay.
So how about you,
I
sir?
buy Nintendo consoles specifically for Zelda.
Okay.
Actually, having a tech
But yeah, so it's not exactly Zelda, but it's actually very heavily influenced by Zelda.
I mean, at least you're honest about it. So what are your friends like? What are your friends working mostly?
So we're looking at right now trying to figure out what kind of platform to start in. So
Like which platform to like
yeah,
launch the
something
game on?
something that plugs in nicely to my project or greenlight things. I don't know. I'm there as like the creative backup for doing design work and motion
Unity has picked up so much traction.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
It's crazy. Like at the game jam we hosted in January, that was like the only thing anyone used. Like there's one team. Oh, Unity. Yeah. Yeah. That was 5 minutes. So.
Yeah.
All right, take 30 seconds more and we'll wrap it up, and then we'll move on to the next question here.
30-second wrap up. Sorry.
I've been doing games design development.
This is awesome. Young, veterans, this is great. Why? That's really a bummer to hear. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll dig deeper into that later.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe we can swap, like, I can do that. Or you can do that.
Oh, you can do it.
You just went to the wrong one.
Wow. Oh, I didn't sit live. Oh, you're already on it. Okay.
All right, everybody. So the first question, now that everyone kind of feels a little bit more comfortable with each other, is what key factors contribute to the lack of opportunities here in Minnesota? Go.
We're going to give you 5 minutes to discuss again. I'm going to join a different one this time. You guys keep going.
And don't forget that we will talk about each of these questions after the 5 minutes with the group. So don't forget to select the person who's your representative.
Growing argument here. That's when I got maybe with Apple and brought everyone back. But recruiting people out of the Bay or Raleigh or Dallas or anywhere up to Minnesota, the number one problem was weather. It literally was, like, there was no amount of money. There's no amount of money you could offer these engineers.
Like, you have to actually.
And so basically,
That's so cool.
Did you work on
right. And so I was fortunate to work having been from here, so he was having problems recruiting from outside of the city,
forget
bringing
Scott
experts to
Osterweil.
to
It was his child.
from one of the schools around town.
His
And
brainchild.
there's unfortunately not a lot of game development programs in the schools here.
Cool.
But at
That
least,
was like the only one, and that one's pretty established.
yeah. But I mean, I was fortunate enough to basically get pulled in just on, hey, we have a good reference, and that launched that. But other than that, there's
That's actually, wasn't it like, I've been trying to work on that. I'm in contact with the guy at Riot right now to work remotely. Probably a lot. I mean, like, you got bars that have them all over the place.
Yeah. It's kind of on a downswing with that, like, for a while they were trying to grow that. I don't know about games, just in tech. And then all of a sudden they pulled back and it's like, no, you have to make your own site.
it's because they can't make you work 18 hours a day when you're remote. And now you laugh, but it's the truth.
So maybe that's what we do here, though, is that if we want to found a studio here, we say, okay, Dallas, like, the things that are cool about here are, don't work 18-hour day and keep your weather. And
The problem with that idea, though, is that there's actually grow the community here that's still siloing us.
I mean, I joined the
It's like, hey, we have a great studio, but all of our employees are across to us.
But it doesn't. Okay, yeah, you need to look into
Yeah,
it
you
because
should.
they have meetings every.
If it builds a studio,
I get the email.
that could,
Could be a way to like get it going.
at least, build some momentum.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
you're right, Joel, that it doesn't really, it doesn't bring
Zach Wendt is the one
talent here
over there
to
that
kind of help.
used to run it for
Grow the
like
theater
7 years.
diversity.
So, like,
like
IGDF,
the VR
you would
tech group.
I go with a couple times a year. You go next?
I do,
I haven't been in a while.
I've gone on occasion.
Yeah, so IG is some great people.
The original teletype.
No, it's very much siloed groups.
And there's no, like, the game jams they do, there's no really strong little dare groups.
Is this the games?
Yep. Yeah. So accelerating the games. Yeah.
If you can just like, there's 3 things every day.
Yeah. Right. You guys are pretty friendly. Yeah. That team. I mean, anyone you want. Yeah. Feel free to sit down. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You'll catch on quick.
And when that small project is done, I'm sorry, kind of spend it at the same time.
No,
That's fair.
That's fair. Hobby and you. Yes, I have.
I ended up talking to
But I'm- I
one
love seeing
of
more
the
people
students
try
on
to get
accident
this.
about this yesterday, and he was very adamant and said, I don't want to work in games here. I don't want to be here. If I want to work in games, I'm going to go somewhere
Money
else.
and the
And
inertia
I
is
was
all
like,
centered on those
whoa,
specific
why?
places. I think
Immediately
there
he
are
said,
opportunities in the
and
Midwest
this
for
is
that to
someone who's
grow.
been
I mean,
involved with like our
so
community and
Chicago's got
over
NetherRealm,
4
they've got
years.
Iron Galaxy, they've got a
Almost
few
since we started.
kind of what I would call
And he
AAA
was
indie
a
in the
graduate
sense that
like 2 years ago,
they
and
take on big projects, but
he
they're still
said,
technically independent studios.
there are no games that he wants to work on.
Well, they do, but they
He doesn't
they
want to
don't
start his own company.
bank themselves
he
on
wants
it.
to develop a game. He doesn't want to do all
So
the
that's kind of
business
another
side.
thing I want to run by, particularly
And honestly,
you.
like,
When
the
you say
community
starting
here
a
is so
studio
small
in
that
Minnesota, are you
like,
talking with
I don't
somebody
feel like there are fruitful
that could
connections
just
that I can
sell their
truly
soul to
make
EA and then
within the
potentially
games
just
industry.
disappear overnight? Because we just lost.
Exactly.
I mean, did you see the story on Darkside Games that was doing the Phantom Dust reboot? Out of Florida, they took money from Microsoft. Microsoft came in with scope creep. They couldn't cover it. They asked for more money. They said, no, we're just cutting our losses, and the whole studio got shuttered.
Well, I mean,
so I guess
that's
kind
run
of.
of the mill. I mean, you ever see the lists every year? They put
Oh,
out
yeah,
how
yeah,
many
yeah.
studios started and died,
Well,
and
yeah.
usually it's about
Well,
400.
that's why I'm just saying, like, that's why I'm thinking, like, in order for it to sustain, even if we had a studio, if it was just, a Call of Duty booster studio, for example, I'm just using Call of Duty as an example because we have an Activision offshoot here. that
It's
just-
only publishing arm. There's
but
very little development.
exactly, they're just testing and licensed games. But say they did get a Call of Duty booster studio here. What would that really do in terms of expanding things? Particularly, I think we need an Iron Galaxy. I think we need a NetherRealm. We need somebody who's technically still able to self-fund.
So a lot of like those independent studios grow out of the bigger ones, like Engimoko, or you'll have people who have a team that have some success.
Well, those two
and-
split from Midway, who died. So
And so you'll have those, and then the group, and actually Amy Dallas from the Bunch plays.
All right, 30 seconds again.
Wow, that was funny. Who wants to be our representative to talk
They're
about
true
games that we
studio
have
members.
mentioned?
They're all veterans of EA and Riot and some
Yeah.
other big studios, and they'll be talking.
The key
they'll be talking
points.
about kind of mixing and balancing contract work with doing your own game studio.
I'm
So they
gonna
do a lot of game
vote
engine work
you
for,
are
like,
the
Riot
person
and
that.
companies, and then
Yes, you're going to do it.
their own
You are
and it's
our representative. Maybe we can like tag team it for every question and switch it off. So what are the key points here? The big one was there's no development happening here.
My last full-time thing, I commuted to California because we had a team here, but for 2 weeks I was in LA.
Hello.
Hello.
You coming back? Are we gonna do a big group discussion?
Yeah, I will hand over. All right, let's come back to the big group here really quick, and we'll hand over the mics to some of the team leads. So first one, we'll just do this table and go one by one. Can you make sure to introduce yourself too?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Abdiwak. I don't know if I need to introduce myself more than that. Our group was talking about just the lack of developers that are here in Minnesota, and how there are so many in other places. And I think a couple of our group members were saying, like if you're in San Francisco or something and something falls through, or a game that you're working on falls through, there's another opportunity right across the street, where if that happens here, you're kind of, out. There's not as much opportunity to go somewhere else. So I think that just kind of hinders that the growth that could happen here. So. Sure.
There is a scene.
Oh yeah, there is a scene here. I mean, like there's the IGDA and everything like that, and the indie scene here. But I think a lot of people that are part of that are working like part time or doing it on the side as a hobby, which is cool, and there's nothing against that. But I don't think that is kind of growing the industry here. So I don't know.
Hi everybody, I'm Will. I'm a software engineer. I don't work in games, but I'm very interested in it, and I do it on the side a little bit, just as a hobby. So what we kind of talked about is how, yeah, there's not a lot of studios, not a lot of developers. It's tough to recruit them because of the weather. You know, most of them live in places that are nice and like that and want to stay there, which is understandable, given that I got smacked in the face with like poker chip sized snowflakes yesterday. But you know, we have some small things and community things, but we talked a lot about how they kind of operate in isolation. And while we have things like IGD, ATC, and Glitch, that, you know, events for that are few and far between, and they oftentimes don't have a really collaborative environment where people are getting together and talking about stuff and figuring out, you know, times at which new game development can start. So, you know, for example, things like Ludum Dare, that happens like, what, 4 times a year or something like that? But we do the Global Game Jam here, and that's great. You know, that's a good event that's pretty well attended, I've seen anyway. But, and it gets people some experience, but we could use more things like that. Because if you miss that, then that's, you know, like I did this year, it was my daughter's first birthday. Like, yeah, I'm waiting until next year to try and make another game. So, and then in the meantime, I got to work during the day. So, you know, without a lot of other opportunities, it's tough to do. So, yeah, kind of balancing that kind of freelance work with doing an indie game on the side. That's something that happens here, but it's, you know, it's not fostering the community strongly enough.
So yeah, there seems to be a lot of commonality so far already with just the lack of people in our industry. Just the tech community here is great, but it's not as flush with people as like the Bay Area, for example. And on top of that, like game industry is even smaller yet. It's just like a subset of our industry, and so it's even just smaller yet. And we actually talked a little bit about venture capitalists too, and like the money that it takes and the upfront cost of making a game is huge in comparison to like making some web app, right? Like you can do that more iteratively than say a game. And there's this huge perception problem, especially with venture capitalists, where like you have to be on one coast or the other. I'm Steve, by the way. I work for SmartThings. And we started as a Kickstarter campaign, and when we were trying to get venture capitalists to back us, they wouldn't commit unless we moved to one of the coasts. So that, I think, while there is a huge community here that is amazing, there's this massive perception problem throughout the nation that we have that we're fighting against.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm Chad Wagner. I'm currently I'm the head of digital technology for the Star Tribune. I'm also a reformed game engineer from both the 1990s and the mid-2000s. So I actually can speak from this with a little bit of background. What's interesting about this is I think there's actually a lack of traditional opportunities in Minnesota. So there is not, say, kind of an anchor company like you might get even in Wisconsin. So in the mid-2000s, I worked out of a startup in Green Bay. And at least you had companies like Raven Software and Human Head kind of down in Madison. So you go to IGDA in Madison, you kind of had like a couple hundred people who are right there. Minnesota's never really had that. Like we've had a couple of different startups or even kind of established companies, but to the best of my knowledge, they've kind of gone away at this point. But the industry is very different today than it was in the mid-90s and the mid-2000s. So what's interesting about that is that there's now different opportunities, and it's how we can grow our talent here in a different culture, right? So instead of in the mid-90s where you had to have something on a CD, which meant you had to have a publisher, which meant you had to have a bunch of money to make that stuff happen, or even in the mid-2000s when you really needed Microsoft to get you on their platform, now there are so many distribution channels, so many ways for independent folks to get on there. There's a lower barrier to entry. But how do you get the skills? How do you get the talent that you need yourself and partner with those folks to get there, right? How can you drive to the goal?
So I'm very curious about like how in Minnesota could we drive towards people being able to rally around that and to have those kind of small, interesting opportunities. Maybe one day that turns into a big company, but I think more and more the big giant companies are less the new thing, right? Like what's the next new big company that's not just bought and subsumed by EA, right? So that's just a little bit of thoughts on kind of from this table. So.
Okay. My name's Doug Thorpe. I've been going to IGDA forever. I'm more of an indie developer. I haven't done that many game stuff in the last year or so because I've been working on this other project. But I really, agree with the remarks from this table about the game jam and so forth. It draws a lot of interest. A couple of years ago, did that, and we created this game. Like had a really nice mechanic, but it was like the weekend and then it's gone. But there's a lot of like indie developers that go to IGDA, but there's artists there and there's sound people. But maybe you could do something more about doing game startups. A lot of people do it part time and as their second thing, like I do. But I like to get the royalties from Apple every month. It's really a nice sideline, and it keeps on coming. And I think if you're going to develop the game system here, game environment here, we need to do more to promote indie companies, because it's going to be really hard to bring a big major company in here if that's the goal. But if we develop more of the indie companies, that will be a draw. If they acquire an indie company that takes off, then they're here, right? And so I think maybe we could develop something like Game Jam, but have it not just a weekend, something that could go on for 6 months. And here you want to create a game and get some people together and have something that'll go on for 6 months a year. Several years ago at IGDA, a bunch of us got together, artists and so forth, and we developed this game. The guy that's these big gloves and fought dinosaurs, and we developed it up, and you had one level, but we were kind of just practicing skills at that point. But that I look back at that and like, that could be something that we could have developed out into something, we could have sold, right? But, it's hard to, even if you go to IGDA, to connect with people that are looking to develop something like that. And so I think we need to develop a system where people can get together, do a startup in their part-time, and see where it goes. Because that's where, but we'll create the indie environment that will do that.
Thank you.
I'm interested in doing that.
That's a great lead into the next question. So, what are the potential solutions? That's the next question, so please feel free to discuss, and then select your team leader again if that's a new person, and we'll come back to the main groups in 5.
I got him. Yeah. Hello. You want to jump into another group, or? Yeah. I mean, they aren't too full, to be honest. So you can jump into one of them.
I'm more of a sponge right now.
No, it's okay. I mean, you can just sit at a table and sponge as well. I'm Nick, by the way.
I'm Kevin.
Nice to meet you, Kevin. No, it's okay. It's a nice backpack.
Yeah, I had to use my 50% off CVS coupon on something.
Ah, that makes sense.
Bigger every year and having bigger and bigger people in this industry come and talk.
Oh, yeah.
And I've used that for like 3 or 4 years, and it looks new versus like I've had 2 other like Swiss bakes and stuff in the last 10 years, and I like died.
Yeah, you can jump in with these guys. They're pretty friendly. Yeah.
And not get sucked away. Absorb or put the roots down and kind of say, no, I want to be here. Like Jam Software. I went to Eau Claire, so I'm glad to see that they're staying in Eau Claire. They expanded here, but their headquarters is in Eau Claire. So, or just by having, everyone's talking about Finland right now. Because that's where Unity came from, that's where Angry Birds came from, that's where Notch came from. That all started out of the demo scene. Because I went over there and I said, I
used to work a lot in Europe, and I'm like, why are there so many game companies out here? There's a huge demo scene. They're saying the same things that we are. There weren't any jobs. There weren't any companies. It was all being developed there, and we kind of said, screw it, we're going to do it ourselves. So they started making demos, and it first started out, who can make the coolest thing in the smallest piece of code. And
If you guys haven't seen the demo stuff, that's from the old 8080 processors.
Yeah.
And you've got 16 colors. You've got 4K of RAM. You know, what can you do? It's got to fit on the floppy disk. The whole thing has to boot and run from the floppy disk. Also assembly language.
Do you know what a floppy disk is? So some of the things that what they did was it was practice. They became very good, and you know, some of those guys. Yeah, and also this was during a lot of them were in the communist countries, and so games were bad, but they were very, very. They had great education, so they were very skilled programmers, and so they started making games. And then when the walls fell down, you know, they just kind of let's do this, and they got picked up. And so like a couple of these companies now that are now launch titles. It's really funny for me is launch titles on Xbox One, PS4. I didn't even know when they were 2-3 people. When they were demos, and I talked to them 10 years ago. Now I see them now, and they're like, "Can you freaking believe this?" And I know I'm like, "Great for you, it's excellent." But I think part of it.
And now they're in California.
No, they're still in Europe.
Okay.
They're still they're not leaving
So
Europe.
some of the okay, so
Yeah, these guys are all in Europe. We're demo guys, and then now they actually, you know, trials. You ever hear of trials?
Yeah.
Those guys, I remember when they were 2 guys and just pitching me this little game, and I was stupid and passed on it. But you know, you get something like that. You never know when it's going to be a hit. You know, Angry Birds, everybody thinks they're overnight. That was their 76th game they made.
Was it really?
Yeah, so you got to keep trying at it. And so I'm saying, Glitch, IGDA, demo scene, getting together, more. Just like, you know, we blew up when Prince blew up. Remember? Go back to, you know.
Well, we used to have an educational scene here.
Educational. We used to have the supercomputers came from here, guys.
Yeah.
Cray and everything. They came from here. We could do it again.
Yeah, no, I work in Oregon Trail. And MEC, the company that did that, there was a halo effect. We had lots of educational software developers in town. We still have a few alumnus from that time still doing educational software.
They originally made it on the teletype.
Yeah.
Like the original Oregon Trail was on the teletype.
Yep, it was on a teletype.
I feel like it's not for a lack of interest or talent. It's for a lack of coordination.
Well, I think we have, exactly, coordination, and that's what I'm thinking, you know, because I do a lot of Arduino stuff, and we have makerspaces, and there's a kind of inherent collaboration that you work in a room with other people, like-minded individuals.
I don't want to be
Given the part-time nature of game development as it exists today, that's kind of similar to what we're doing over the hardware side. You know, because you're not going to be also 9 to 5, but 6 to midnight, sure. You know, and maybe we need communal work areas.
Yeah.
Is there an issue with there being too much noise now, though? Because like with Steam Greenlight and like all of there's so many games now, like even the Humble Bundles and things like that.
Yeah, it's a very different world.
It's just
it's
like
hard.
you
There's
make a
almost
game and you
too
get like
much.
very little from it.
It's like cable. You know,
Yeah.
you turn on TV. What am I going to watch? It's just too much to watch. And kind of same with games. Getting noticed is hard. It's like music, indie films.
Yeah.
How do I get noticed?
Yeah.
And so that's
It's like
the
he's
thing.
talking about over there, you know, the fact that it's become so easy to publish anything.
Yeah.
You don't need to go with all
It's
the
a
overhead
two-edged
of
sword.
production.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and that's why I like Kickstarter, because you have to prove your marketing ability from the start.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a brilliant part of Kickstarter is that, you know, if you don't have your marketing plan together, you're going to fail, which is true in the big world too.
Yeah.
But I think I've read.
Kickstarter though is if you have your marketing down, it doesn't matter how bad your product is. Sometimes like Kickstarter's
Well, and I've worked in marketing for 15 years as well, and
But
you know, the truth
I've
is
at
it's more
Activision,
important.
I've put $1 million games.
Okay, 30 seconds more.
No.
And
Some
you
did.
But they made money.
Some did.
Because I mean, that's the case.
And that's why,
Games,
and that's why studios got shut
there are
down.
great games that don't get any notice.
Yep.
And
Yeah, to just look at the history.
And then there are
I
shitty
remember
games
reading
that
some
make
of
a
it,
ton
so
of money. I
Come
think
on,
it's just.
Come on, Okay, so how many steps away is Minneapolis?
Yeah.
it's more about doing and less about money.
But
Because
I
when
watched
you're doing things,
talking about the amount of games that are coming out and how it's not necessarily a bad thing. It makes it harder, but
So we're gonna start on the other side of the room. Nobody's stopping.
And none of them make money.
All right, is everyone done talking here? Ava, get up.
I'm getting up.
All
I'm
right,
up.
we'll start over on this side. So you guys want to go first this time? All right, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Brent. One of the ideas we pitched was instead of trying to get like a large game company or just kind of a single large entity to act as an anchor, instead like copy a little bit what Minibar and maybe even Coco has done and bring together like some sort of collaborative space where lots of independent people could work together and kind of create that sort of same nexus that like a large anchor would.
All right, my name is Joel Stewart. I initially started the conversation just saying that the large anchors aren't coming here. VC is not coming. It ain't going to happen. And so we're going to have to come up with different, more creative solutions and the kind of a balance between contract work, working for other game companies across the states or across the world can help pay the bills. And then when you have time and enough bankroll, you can start working on your own independent stuff, and hopefully some of those will take off. There is a lot of work to be had, not just here in Minnesota, but in the Bay Area. You know, development talent is astronomically high across the world, and it's really just about finding the work and getting out there. And then once you can start putting people up here in the cities together that can work together and build products for other companies, then you can start creating synergy and launch your own stuff. We need to start thinking about other industries and other opportunities. So education came up. That's a difficult one to crack, but it's an opportunity. Games and education are definitely in demand. Other companies like board game companies, Fantasy Flight Games here in town, that's a big untapped company, and that's just something that's going to have to be worked on. But there are a lot of companies like that as well. So partnerships with existing IP and existing products need to be explored much further than they have been to date.
Anyone at this table? Anyone else? Okay, sounds good.
I don't know, our main idea was kind of, you know, we do this, there's a thing called like Startup Weekend that they have occasionally here, and I've been involved in a couple of those, and maybe we could have something like a game jam type Startup Weekend for games that helps. What the great thing about that is that a bunch of people with interest in that area get together. You got developers, you got art, you know, and they brainstorm and you can congeal around an idea. And unlike Game Jam, where you just do it over a weekend and it's public domain, you can develop something that maybe the people that go there are interested in maybe taking it further than just that, you know, first weekend of doing a hackathon. I think.
Thank you.
Anyone?
That it? Sure. Okay. So one of the potential solutions we were talking about is just we still talked about how Toronto has a really good environment for the game industry, and how perhaps if we could borrow some of those ideas from Toronto and apply them to the Twin Cities, we could increase you know, the number of developers that feel comfortable moving here, and we could see if some came out of the woodwork.
Wants to go?
Hi, Chip, and I agree with a lot of things that everyone said, especially the co-op space and outsourcing did that, the hackathon. But also one of the things that we talked about was we need to pump up our scene more, and everyone's talking about Finland and why are all the games coming out of there. There's a strong demo scene that was there before those games took off. So if we could create that same demo scene here, get a couple hits, knock it out. If you guys remember, Prince put Minneapolis pretty much on the map too when his music came on. We could do the same thing by having a great demo scene and putting out a bunch of games. Seattle became huge because of the grunge indie music scene. Let's try to do the same thing with games. And you were talking about Toronto. I'm sorry I didn't discuss this with you guys, but I just thought about it. The reason there's so many games in Canada is because Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, the government gives tax breaks to those people to bring in those companies, and that's why they're there. Everyone moved there. So I don't know if anybody works with the government, but let's work with the government to try to get tax breaks. So, oh, and one shameless plug. if you want, if you want to know what it's like to work in the game industry, I'm giving a presentation after lunch about 20 years in the game industry, and then how to build another one, how to build a small team to actually make this happen that you were talking about.
All right, so we had one more question, but I think we're going to forego that one for now. If you want to talk about this and your small groups before, like, while on your way to your next session, feel free to. But we're thinking of, like, what key players need to be involved.
Wait, what? We're not ending early.
Oh, we are?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Start talking about this then.
We have 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Just talk about this for a little bit. So what key players need to be involved? We mentioned government needs to be one of them. Who else needs to be involved?
Yeah, who else needs to be involved in these conversations to make things happen? Go.
Well, and you talk about kind of, it's not just tax breaks. I worked with one group a few years ago that were running on a government grant. Their first 2 cycles were fully government funded.
Apple Cup. You know, something like an Apple Cup for games.
Minnesota Cup for games.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I meant. Why don't they call it Apple Cup?
I don't know, because you worked at Apple.
Okay. Minnesota Cup, something like that for games, but, or a startup weekend where there's actually. What is that? Oh, the Apple Cup.
I think there's something on Minnesota Cup that's like
Oh, that's strange. But Minnesota Cup is basically like an entrepreneurial, large-scale event. You make your pitch, you go through a bunch of different rounds, a bunch of different committees, and you pitch eventually to a large group of venture capitalists and angels. But
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
rarely.
That's why. They want to change it. But also, there's startup weekend. I can't remember. Did they get any money from that?
I have no clue.
Because my son took second this year, and it was cool for about 3 months, and they had the afterglow and everything. And
Sure.
Yeah. If they actually
I
got
think
some
you.
money
Yeah.
to actually.
See, that's the difference between Minnesota Cup and maybe like the Startup Weekend. For example, like there's 5 different categories in Minnesota Cup. The top winner of each category receives $35,000, and then the top out of all of the 5 categories has the opportunity to go pitch to the Gopher Angels for angel investments, and then all of the publicity that rides along with that as well.
I think, or we should get more involved with.
What's different about like
Festivals?
Something where, so we created demo scene. We have a big thing where everyone shows their game, and then we have a winner, and that goes, and they actually get the money to be able to figure what's the game, polish it, go to GDC, take it, just like the film industry. Once again, is you make your movie, and then you get it go, invite it to. But you go to all the film festivals.
I would generally.
Let's have the conversation end, like just end.
Office are actually involved.
At 10 exactly. And then I have an ending. And I don't say that we do have our space and the grant.
Just wrap it up. Let's not do a discussion.
I think we should.
We're gonna run out of time. People are.
All right, everyone. I'm so sorry, but I think we are going to have to kind of wrap up a little bit early here. Are you guys in the next session? Maybe we could close the door. Could you guys close the door on your way out? Thank you. So let's go really quick. Make it 1 minute. We'll go to each table. Let's start over here. Going here. Someone who hasn't spoken.
well, obviously government. What else are we talking about? I've already forgotten.
The demo scene with
Oh, yeah.
prize that you can finish.
Yeah, we talked about like people. We don't see game developers in the Minnesota Cup. We do, and some festivals, all that sort of thing. To try to develop newsworthiness and acclaim, and just get more attention to the scene.
I'll follow on the Minnesota Cup thing. That's because you're not picking us. Wah, wah. The key players, we identified Chip. He's a big deal, so Chip, you need to be more involved. Come on, man. And then, just kidding. Yeah, no. Thank you so much, Chip, for having Concrete here. It's a big deal. And government, yes, for sure. As much as we don't loathe government money and subsidies, whatever, sometimes it can help pay the bills. And so we talked a little bit about industries that can help fund companies. Healthcare is a big one. So games for the wellness and the fitness areas where you can kind of have an overlap between your development for a private enterprise solution, and then you can kind of rejigger that
work into a consumer-based product as well can be very beneficial. So having more of the big companies that are not typically game associated would be helpful up here.
We talked a little bit about having some of the key players involved, looking at examples like Prince and some others where it's a matter of taking initiative. It's a matter of saying, yeah, we want this to happen, and it's important enough to us to actually do something about, and to have meetings where we get together and on a regular basis participate and join and collaborate and create. So maybe not Prince as a key player, but us.
That's kind of cool to get him to come out to talk. He could be the next performer.
Right, but us, if it's important to us, we are the key players today.
And Prince.
We are Prince. Hi everybody, my name's Zach. I organized IGDATC for 7 years. I just want to make everybody aware, whatever you want to get going, leverage that group. It's a mailing list of 700 people. We have 3 meetings every month. Currently, I still help out, but I organize the local VR group. I think it sounds self-serving, but I'm trying to talk fast. It's a new opportunity. We've, to a certain extent, missed the boat on console games and mobile games, and that's why we have smaller groups here. But what we picked who to leverage is the local tech scene, just the non-game scene. There's programmers that love this stuff. You're all sitting here. Talk to your bosses, see what we can get going. The missing element is kind of the design side and the graphics side, but there are art schools in town. There's 3 or 4 of them that have games degrees.
Thank you, Zach. One last.
Okay, one quick thing. Oh, okay. Mobilize.mn. This is a selfless pitch. Not really. It's not for me. Amy Dallas from Clutch Play. They were featured with their game back in November. They're an example of a studio that is balancing work for hire with independent studio. So self-funded. They're out of Seattle. She's flying in to do a presentation on what it was like to balance that, and then actually get featured by Apple and the relationships that had to occur. It's going to be an awesome presentation. It's mobilize.mn, and I think it's either this coming, or not, it might be in June, I think. So, but definitely just keep your eye on that. That'll be a great presentation. So, Amy's awesome.
We have to close. I'm so sorry. So some closing remarks. Thank you so much for coming out. We mentioned this at GlitchCon, and we haven't been super public about it quite yet, but we are starting, that physical space, that maker space. We actually just got a $35,000 grant to make that. And we're starting up our advisory board, and Chip is potentially going to be on it as well. But there's a lot going on, and we really want to essentially tip this conversation into action. So there are opportunities here, opportunities to work with so many different people. Government is a huge one. Local nonprofits, for example, like Greater MSP. There's a lot of people who are going to be involved in this, and we'd really love for everyone to be involved with it as much as they can. So our contact information is up there. Zach is and has been with IGDA for so long. They are a really awesome resource as well, and Chip is also an industry vet of over 25 years. There's some really great talent here. Let's tip this conversation into action, everyone. Thank you.